Now this is something that's really cool, I think. In the last video, I talked about the 144 aspects and the two different tables that I came up with. There was a table that was drawn from statistics on people's charts, and then there was another table which was drawn from statistics on the asteroids. Of course, the meanings are very similar because the asteroids get their meanings from different angles that they form with other planets, including the majors, and those angles are related to separations in space, which define where the asteroids are in the first place. So it it makes mathematical sense when you think about it, but I guess the short version of it is if we have a formula for your asteroid or your planets that NASA can use to predict where things will be, then we have a formula for everything else and it's all related. So you find that the statistical version, the chart version of the 144 aspects, and the asteroid version actually are kind of similar. They tell similar stories. But by the time I made the second version of the table, I got tired of trying to cram in a whole bunch of text, and I wanted something that was easier to look at. And so the second version of the table, which is not available in any of the books, it's just available on this site here, um, is just easier to read. But it's got less detail. That's what you sacrifice for it. So in this video, I want to tell you a little bit about life paths and the idea that you can use your life path table once it's all filled out to fix some things. So this morning I woke up and I said, man, I got to get some of my life path squares under control. So for example, the collection of 53s that I have were associated with a kind of interaction which I originally wrote down in my life path table as meeting somebody named ADC. Okay, so I met ADC, and the way that relationship went basically describes how my 53s played out. It was a really great summary of what my 53s do. That's kind of cool, but it doesn't tell me what I want to do with my 53s. So today, I went back over the aspect highlighter and some other things that you can find also elsewhere on this site. And I said, really, I want my 53s to show where my BFF, so to speak, is a creative, rebellious person. And I also color coded it a little bit. In my newer version of this chart, I used orange to indicate other people. I used red to indicate stuff I needed to work on, and blue to indicate stuff that I really do well already. So this is how you use your life path chart to start where you start, and then go back in and come up with some fixes to where you want to go. It's actually really, really useful. It's too bad I can't just convey to you how useful this is. Remember, the life path chart is basically a periodic table of your life. It shows every single characteristic kind of interaction that you have in your life. If you think of yourself as a song, for example, then there's going to be certain frequencies in the basses, certain frequencies in the mid-range, certain frequencies in the trebles, but there's going to be characteristic waves in your song that are, well, they're stuck with you, right? So if you're listening to a rock track, then you may not have basses which move the way that traditional classical music would, or traditional, I don't know, bluegrass would, or anything like that. There's a signature that goes with the different frequencies. Well, in the same way, you have signatures which say, this is how I handle wealth, this is how I handle family, this is how I handle family that I'm fighting with, this is how I handle my own self-esteem. And basically, your life path chart shows all of your different kinds of frequencies. Even if you were to completely change your social status, completely change your interaction with the world, you still wouldn't fundamentally change your patterns, your inner behavioral and cognitive patterns, because you still have genetics and things like that. So what your life path table enables you to do is first make the table. You make the table the way you start, just go in, do all of your statistics. It takes forever to do. I tell people it takes me about 15 to 18 hours to make one of these. Um, And if you haven't done the research and are still new to all of this stuff, the idea that you can have 1/42nd or 1/41st of a circle, then it might take you a really, really long time. That's okay though, because as you do it, you learn a whole lot about yourself. But once you're done, you'll look at your life path table and you'll find, for example, that when you do your 41s, they cause your 65s, and so on and so forth. Later, you sit your life path table down and you say, you know what, I, I really wish that I could get my 41s right. And so, how do I do it? Well, normally I obey this kind of behavior. Okay, this video is a little bit more abstract than I intended, and that's just really unfortunate because there's so much that you can get out of the life path chart. I guess the ideal summary is that um, once you get all your patterns down the way they are, you can remake certain sections of your life path chart to get your patterns down the way you want them to be. For example, the collection of pairs separated by multiples of 1/52nd of a circle in my chart shows where I am resistant to other people's rich images. They're saying, oh, we're going to the islands or we're driving this fast car, you know, advertising culture and stuff. I'm resistant to that in general. I've got a little bit of a bad attitude. I get a little pissy when people show me that stuff because I say, you don't know me. That's not my standard. But I'd like to not be so irritated when I see those things. And so, uh, interestingly, the 1/52nds show where you're left wanting more. So you can imagine if I've got people dangling rich images in front of me, I'm left wanting more and I kind of want to fight that off, and it makes me irritated to see it. But I don't want to admit that fact, right? So, in the asteroid version showed clusters of asteroids which indicated gilding. That's putting kind of a golden veneer over things. And so these are definitely related. How do I fix that? Well, ideally, um, so I went back into my asteroids and I found out that I tend to display my 52nds without problems, without being annoyed when I go on road trips with my friends. And so we'll go and we'll visit certain places. And lo and behold, instead of feeling like people are dangling their riches in front of me, I feel like we're part of that rich group, dangling our good time in front of everyone else. And that actually works out better for me. So this is where I want my 52s to be. This is where my 52s start when my attitude is cleaned up. And so on and so forth. All of these things can be rewritten in terms of stuff that you need to work on. And if it isn't something that you need to work on, then you know you just leave it the way it is. So I've got my 54s. My behavior with my 54s tends to describe a dysfunctional but perfect girlfriend. And I have asteroids in my chart, Dorothea and Chryseis, which indicate that. And I actually am kind of at home with that, so I left it alone. Anyway, this is how you use your life path chart. The challenge of all of this, going from where you are to where you want to be, is that you really have to make the full chart, which shows where you are. You can look at my other video describing how the life path charts work and what I do. It's available elsewhere on Electric Monastery, and it's called Life Path Table or Life Table or something like that. And you can totally do this on your own. Just know that it's going to take a little bit of investment. Once it's done, though, it's basically a whole map of your life and your tendencies and your views and all of the kinds of personalities that you have. Before I end this recording, I want to stress that your life path table really does include other people as well, stereotyped people. So, for example, my current quote BFF, whenever that happens, whenever I have one, is always rebellious and always creative. They have a certain look, they have a certain attitude, they often have a certain kind of height, but that kind of thing is going to be something that you find in your life path table. Have fun describing the way you do things, and hopefully you can have fun describing the way you want those things to be fixed as well, if at all.